Are 25% of Nigerian fathers really raising non-biological children? I mean, you've probably seen this question everywhere lately. It recently sparked an absolute media frenzy across Nigeria. Headlines were literally screaming that 1 in 4 Nigerian men is unknowingly raising a child that isn't biologically his. It's the kind of statistic that just stops you in your tracks, right? But as with most viral claims that catch fire online, the full story is actually way deeper, much more nuanced, and honestly, incredibly fascinating. Welcome to this explainer. I'm really glad you're here with us. Today, we're going to objectively dissect those sensational headlines you've been seeing. We're going to dive deep into the actual data, the legal landscape, and the profound cultural realities behind Nigeria's sudden DNA testing boom. We're going to strip away all the noise and use the source material to figure out exactly what is going on. So let's jump right into it.
Section 1. The 25% paternity myth, fact versus fiction.
So, let's look at the core data point from the Smart DNA 2025 annual report that started all this. It is actually true that 25% of the paternity tests conducted at their clinic between July 2024 and June 2025 returned negative results. Basically, 1 in 4 of the men tested at this specific facility was not the biological father. Interestingly enough, this is actually a slight decrease from the 27% they recorded back in 2024. But here is the absolutely crucial point we need to keep in mind. To really understand this chart, we have to ask ourselves who is actually going in and taking these tests.
And right there is where we hit the classic problem of sample bias. You see, the clinic's data strictly comes from high-risk clients. These are families who are already disputing paternity. There are self-selected group testing because, well, they already have serious doubts. You simply cannot take data from a highly suspicious group of men and just blanket apply it to the entire Nigerian population. It's totally scientifically unsound. Actually, medical experts, including former Nigerian Medical Association officials, estimate that the disputed paternity rate in the general population is way lower. We're talking somewhere between 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 100,000. So that nationwide crisis headline? Yeah, it's a massive statistical distortion.
Section 2. Why are Nigerians testing? Peace of mind and the Japa wave. Now, the data reveals a pretty stark breakdown of motives. Almost 84% of tests are initiated simply for peace of mind, and it turns out nearly 9 out of 10 of all tests are initiated by men. These are typically older guys, over 41, who've accumulated doubts over the years and finally achieved the financial stability to afford the test. It's deeply personal, not court-mandated. But there is a rapidly growing secondary driver for testing coming in at about 13.1% for immigration. And this has a very specific cultural context behind it.
That 13% surge is directly tied to what's known in Nigeria as the Japa wave. If you're not familiar, Japa is a hugely popular term right now referring to the massive trend of citizens emigrating to seek better opportunities, residencies, or dual citizenships abroad. Because of this massive movement, DNA testing has suddenly turned into a strict administrative necessity. Families literally need undeniable biological proof of relationships to secure foreign documentation and visas for their kids. So in these cases, it's way less about suspicion and entirely about navigating complex international bureaucracy.
But wait, there is another fascinating cultural driver hidden in this data. Firstborn sons showed the absolute highest paternity discrepancy rate, hitting a staggering 64% in the clinic's records. Now, why would that be? Well, it comes down to a heavy traditional emphasis on patrilineal lineage and male inheritance. In many Nigerian cultures, male heirs hold immense social and spiritual significance. This puts unbelievable pressure on women to produce male children. And consequently, it means firstborn sons face significantly higher scrutiny and are tested far more often than later-born children or daughters. It's a real eye-opener.
Section 3. The social and human toll.
You know, it's so easy to get lost in all these statistics, but we can't forget that behind these numbers are real families facing potentially devastating consequences. Listen to this incredibly powerful quote from a sociological study conducted in the Enugu metropolis. It says, "The child, not the father or mother, is the real victim of paternity discrepancy. Among the social consequences are marital dissolution, domestic violence, identity crises, and denial of inheritance. When a father discovers he's been deceived, studies show it almost always leads to immediate marital breakdown. The men suffer severe depression and a total loss of trust. But the children? They are thrust into a sudden identity crisis. They're often rejected by the only father they've ever known, losing both their emotional foundation and their financial support, literally in a single day."
Section 4. The legal accountability void.
When we zoom out and compare legal frameworks globally, The contrast is honestly staggering. In the UK, a deceived father can use the Misrepresentation Act to claim damages for deceit. In the US, state laws allow men to challenge and stop child support obligations if fraud is proven. But look at Nigeria. There are 0 specific paternity fraud laws, none. And there's no national forensic DNA database either. So when a Nigerian man discovers he's been raising another man's child, the law kind of just leaves him in the dark. He might try to use general fraud laws, but the judicial rulings are wildly inconsistent. Some courts say, okay, you can stop paying for the child. Others argue the child's welfare is paramount and force him to keep paying. There's just no clear path for financial restitution.
And academic research, like studies published in the Journal of Basic and Environmental Research, they are sounding the alarm on this. They emphasize that this absence of explicit legal provisions is a massive problem. General family laws like the Matrimonial Causes Act, they just don't adequately address the unique, incredibly complex trauma of paternity fraud. It leaves victims feeling like the justice system simply doesn't care about their deception.
Plus, even just getting to the truth is a luxury. Right now, a single DNA test costs between 100,000 and 200,000 naira. That's roughly 120 to 240 US dollars. In Nigeria, that is a massive accessibility barrier. For many low-income families, paying for a reliable DNA test to resolve a court dispute or clear up a nagging doubt is completely out of reach. So the truth, in many ways, is heavily gatekept by cost.
And unfortunately, there's another dark side to this testing boom. Human rights lawyer Frank Titi has raised a severe warning. Because the industry is booming and largely unregulated, there is a very real risk of laboratory fraud. Titi warns that technicians in these unregulated labs could easily be bribed by a disputing party to issue fake DNA results, which would permanently destroy a child's true heritage. To prevent this nightmare scenario, he strongly recommends that, in extreme disputes, DNA testing should be strictly supervised by the High Court under the provisions of the Child Rights Act.
Section 5. Regulating the DNA boom.
So how do experts suggest Nigeria actually fix this highly sensitive crisis moving forward? Well, researchers and legal experts have laid out 3 concrete steps. Step 1. Enact specific laws. Nigeria needs to look at countries like South Africa and create explicit statutes that criminalize deliberate paternity misrepresentation, while also creating clear guidelines for financial restitution for deceived fathers. Step 2. Subsidized testing. The government really needs to make DNA testing affordable and reliable and build a regulated national forensic database so results can actually be trusted in court. And step 3, which is perhaps the most important, establish family mediation and mental health support centers. Because resolving this whole situation isn't just about science and law, it's about healing broken people.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. How can society balance the pursuit of biological truth with the protection of the vulnerable family unit? When a man demands the truth, he absolutely deserves justice, but when that truth shatters a family, it's almost always an innocent child who pays the heaviest price. It's an incredibly delicate real-world balance, and it's a conversation Nigeria is only just beginning to have. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this structured look through the data helped clear up those crazy headlines for you. Keep asking questions, keep looking past the sensationalism, and I'll see you in the next one.